Well, Grace, as one of your resident millennials, I find it important to show you things that are maybe happening on social media that I don't know if you're aware about. So we're going to start off today with a clip. And Mary, could you cue that up? There's a woman named Nicoli, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's been calling churches and asking if they'd pay for baby formula for her baby. Now, there is no baby, even though you heard crying. She's running a bit of a social experiment, right? And this experiment has gone viral. There are millions and millions of people who have tuned in to those videos. And she's been working on this social experiment for a few weeks now, calling different churches, asking if they'd pay for a bottle of baby formula. And so far, about 9 have said yes, and about 33 have said no. And the no's vary in response, right? Some of them can be like outright no's, and some of them can be like, we can't help, but, a connection to maybe a different community resource. But she said she started this experiment because she experienced people donating to places that aren't actually interested in helping the community. So she has this experience where she was a part of a flood in her community. And as a veteran, she was like, okay, how can I help? So she literally just got on Facebook, got in her truck and messaged, who needs help? And she started as this catalyst for community coming together and helping out each other and moving things and getting clothes donations, so much so that in the barracks that she was living, her room was filled from floor to ceiling with donations of clothes and different things for the flood victims. And what she found is that in tragic situations, what's really encouraging is that people are really generous. People will donate. On top of what had been donated to her, she heard about people donating tons and tons of clothes and money to larger corporations as well, like the Goodwill or Red Cross. But she found that a lot of help wasn't coming from them, it was more coming from the people, from the community. She noted, for instance, that Goodwill got overwhelmed by the amount of clothes donations that they got. They didn't know what to do with all the donations. But instead of maybe giving some of those out, they just reduced prices by 10%, while clothes sat in the back, stored away, which was frustrating for her. She found that it was the community coming together that provided the most substantial help. So you might be starting to see maybe how she started this church experiment. Tons and tons of people donate to churches. And she wants to try to find the ones that will do the most basic thing of what she feels is the most basic thing of feeding a child, right? And she's asking a question in this experiment. Are churches who follow the way of Jesus interested in caring like Jesus cared? And the places who don't follow Jesus, would they give more generously than churches? And for the churches who said no, I wonder if they've lost sight of hope. Our passage today comes out of a prophecy in Isaiah. And Isaiah is a really great book if you love mess. But not just any mess, other people's mess, right? So, like if you like watching Love is Blind or The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, right? The mess, the drama, there's a train wreck on screen that I can't help but kind of watch a little bit. Isaiah is that mess. You're watching people mess it up. You're watching people be foolish. And Isaiah opens up with the mess. Starts like this in chapter 1. God's talking to Israel. And God says, the ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib. But Israel does not know. My people do not understand. Slight translation, Israel, you are dumber than animals. Or maybe your ears are clogged because even a big dumb ox knows when it's being called. And I've been calling you, but you do not listen. And Israel, they're keen, all right? They're like, okay, God, we hear you loud and clear. We are the ox now, all right? You're mad at us. And we can sense that. We're empaths. We can sense that you're not happy with us. So we've got to adjust. How do we adjust? What is God like? Maybe like a box of Dove chocolates? No. You know what? God loves Sabbaths. God really loves Sabbaths, so much so that he commanded it, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get our New Moon Festival. We're going to get our Sabbaths and get the incense and get the fatted calf because we're going to Sabbath and New Moon Festival harder than anyone has Sabbath or New Moon Festival because that's what God desires. We keep going on in chapter 1. Bringing offerings is futile. Incense is an abomination to me. New moon and Sabbath and calling of convocation. I cannot endure solemn assemblies with iniquity. Your new moons and your appointed festivals, get this, my soul hates. Ooh. They have become a burden to me. I am weary of bearing them. Next slide. So when you stretch out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Whoa, that's messy, folks. That's drama. Oh my goodness. And some of you probably loved that. All right? Some of you, like, if Israel is the housewives of Orange County committing fraud, all right, Isaiah is the Bravo channel. You're getting a front row view to the mess. Israel's messy, and God is calling them out. But when we read Isaiah, we have to resist a temptation, all right? And also, I'll include this, not only when reading Isaiah, but also when watching The Real Housewives, we have to resist the temptation. Because we go, well, they They are so dumb. You know them. They are so messy, right? And me. Well, Carla, you talking about me? Well, me, I've actually never sinned in my life. Beautiful baby little spotless boy before God. I know everything. I have the most common sense. I could never be as foolish as them. Isaiah should be a mirror that we hold up to ourselves as well. We can hold up the book of Isaiah and say, okay, how good am I at listening to God? How many times have I gone through the motion of worship without letting the worship change my heart and soul? How many times have I done a spiritual practice like fasting, where it makes me look really good among other church folks, and they go, wow, this person is so spiritual, they're fasting. Without realizing that for me to go without food, it should mean for me to be more generous to give food away. And God's mad at them only because they aren't living up to what God is going to do. There's an end goal to all these rituals and Sabbaths and new moons. God is creating something new. And so we get our verse today, a vision of prosperity. What can we expect out of this new heaven and new earth? The picture of prosperity we get might not typically look like what we associate with prosperity. Because when I say prosperity, we generally think prosperity gospel, right? Where the premise of the prosperity gospel is that if I have enough faith, if I do enough of the rituals, if I'm pious enough, God will bless me with personal riches beyond my wildest dreams. It's almost a gospel that seems to be hearkening back to the people of Israel in Isaiah. If I Sabbath hard enough, God will bless me. If I new moon hard enough, God will grant me riches. Not realizing that these spiritual practices aren't for God. They're for us. They're meant to change our hearts. So in chapter 65, we get this vision of prosperity that is different from what we normally associate with prospering. Because it's not individual, it's communal. There's a professor at St. Thomas University, Corinne Carvalho, and she writes this. The picture of prosperity in Isaiah is not one of personal wealth. It is a picture of communal harmony. And that community is defined in the broadest of terms. It includes even the things that can harm us. The blessings are not demonstrated by the wealth of the elite. There is no prosperous king in this picture. God's blessings are seen when the poorest and most at risk among us live to a ripe old age. So I need to resist the temptation at the churches who maybe said no to the baby formula. Because I was writing the sermon this week, I get a call from someone at our covenant cupboard. We feed 500 plus people a week. People are looking for help. Someone from the cupboard calls me, picked up. I said, hey, Steve, what's going on? He said, Alex, there's a person here with a utility bill that needs help paying the bill. And Grace, let me tell you, with this word flowing through me, with God's Spirit changing my heart, knowing the care and compassion of Jesus, I confidently said, no, we don't really do that here. And it was the member of the congregation who said, really? Oh, man. Because, the Village Resource Center is down, which is where we normally send them to. And, people are off their SNAP benefits, and so people are struggling financially. And I said what I said because my heart is hard. God, how many people need help, right? The fear starts working in my brain. And I'm not lying, we truly don't do this. There's not some program we have at Covenant where we pay for someone's utility bill, right? I'm responsible for the church budget. I'm responsible for how we spend the limited resources we have. Are we just going to Venmo this guy and watch him stroll away in the sunset with the money of our limited resources? And so I asked, okay, what, does he have the bill on him? We can't just Venmo this guy. My member of our church said, yes, he's got the bill. There's a number to Excel that we can make a one-time payment on. So I said, okay, well, certainly we couldn't do over $100. I mean, so how much is the bill? Probably more than that, right? He said, great news. It's $77. And I said, oh. And my brain starts working, and I start thinking, and I'm like, I don't know if we can do this. And the member on the phone said, you know what, Alex, this actually isn't as big a deal as I thought it was. This is pretty easy. I'll go ahead and pay for it. I'll see you around. So that Sunday, someone who needed help got help. And listen, I'm not asking you to pay for someone's utility bill. I'm not even necessarily asking you to be financially generous. And certainly we should be responsible when it comes to what we give and how we give. But here is what I'm asking you to do. In our cynicism, in our need for self-preservation, in our individualism, in our own fears and struggles, I want you to remember our vision from Isaiah. It's not a vision of one person prospering while the community suffers. It's not a vision solely for the lamb, but it's also for the wolf. I want you to see this vision for communal prosperity. God is creating something new, and we are invited into that task. And when, not if, but when you are presented your opportunity to bless the community around you, I don't even need you to do much, folks. But what I want you to do is deep in your heart and deep in your soul, as that moment comes up, remember Isaiah, and I want you to leave space for hope.